Good morning, you Mavericks. We are so excited to be back here in 2020. And I am Francis Lagasse, your Chief Curiosity Maverick. And I'm here with Catherine Wells, your Chief Inspiration Maverick. And we are your Mavericks of Senior Living. Welcome back, you Mavericks. We are going to talk about a really tough topic here. 3 red flags when you should intervene with your loved one in driving.
This is a really, really important topic, and we're very excited to have Terri Cassidy here from Health Promotion Partners. She came up from Colorado Springs to our studio here in South Denver to talk with us about a program that she has called the Fitness to Drive program. Welcome, Terri.
Thank you so much.
So excited to have you here. So tell our audience a little bit about who you are.
Sure. My name's Terri Cassidy. I'm an occupational therapist and a certified driver rehabilitation specialist. I own and operate Health Promotion Partners, and we do the Fitness to Drive program, which provides driving evaluations for adults after a medical reason or older adults where there's some concern about their safety.
And actually, we just discovered that more than likely, Terri actually assessed my mother probably about 6 or maybe even 7 years ago now, back in Colorado Springs. So, yeah, so I have had the experience of taking car keys away. Actually, my brother did it, but we have had the experience in our family of taking car keys away from both mom and dad. And this is a really, really hard thing to do. And I know your mom especially has experienced this with her dad, right?
Yep.
So, Terri, we are starting with something new in 2020 with our format, and we like to ask our guests who they found in their life to be a maverick.
Great. It's a great question. When I hear that, the first thing that comes to mind is really my mom. And I think of that in terms of somebody who stands up for what she believes in and has always done things a little differently than other people.
Yep.
The story that first comes to mind is, and this is back in the 70s, and she wanted to be a power lifter. And so she was doing weightlifting, but the facility where she went had a separate gym for men and for women. And she decided that didn't matter. She was going to work out in the men's weight room because they had what she needed. So
and she was the only woman in there.
The only woman in there. Maybe 1 or 2 eventually were in there as well. But I think for me, that was just a role model to.
That's awesome.
Just do it. Just do what you think is right and what you need.
Yeah, I think that is so fascinating.
I mean, to me, especially at that time in the 70s, where it was really, there wasn't a lot of working out, right? I mean, to have that, that is really, I'd say, a pioneer in pushing the envelope or being a maverick of doing what you wanted to do to be better. I mean, that's pretty cool.
And
that's really cool.
Gender stereotype.
And
that's true. Yeah, that's right.
And the reason that we're asking that question starting in this year is because we want people to know that being a maverick does not mean that you have to be Martin Luther King or somebody who's literally changing the world. You are changing the world by small steps or by doing what you need to do in your life, and it's impacting other people. Your mom impacted you, and this is going to take us right into our topic, but your mom impacted you because right before we got on air, Danny had asked you what got you into this, and you said people needed it. Nobody was doing this before you started. You made this happen. So tell us a little bit about that. This is such a difficult topic for families to deal with.
And so that's really, where I'm intrigued by is that I'm really curious about how do you even start? Like, what are the kind of big issues that you need to be on the lookout for? Because to me, it seems daunting to be like, I got to take keys away? Like, that's their independence. Do I have to drive them now? I could see all these things run through my head of, this is not going to be fun.
And who am I as the kid to say you can't have
let's dive a little deeper into that, those flags or those 3 key points that we need to keep an eye out for.
So I agree with everything you said. There's a lot of complexity to this topic and to a lot of topics. And so one thing that I kind of shy away from is the term taking away the keys.
Okay. All right. Okay.
This is good.
Because I feel like it kind of brings up trauma. Like either adult children who've done it have like negative experiences to that, or adults out there, they'll come to some events and say, "You're not going to take my keys, are you?" Like, it's such a
Oh,
trigger
wow.
for people that that I want to just start out by saying, you know, I really like to promote, or my goal would be for ideal to be that this is a discussion, this is a decision, and we're getting a lot of different input as we go toward this decision. So ultimately, I think that sometimes if people have the full picture, all of the information, and honestly, a lot of times that's not just the information from their child's standpoint, you know, it's kind of getting a medical opinion, getting some other ideas. Sometimes people are more likely to take that advice. So that gets into family dynamics a little bit too, but I have had the occasion where there's been somebody who's very resistant to stop driving. They come in and see me for a driving evaluation. And by the end of it, we do a long process. By the end, they're saying, "So you really were nervous in the car today."
So they start kind of picking up.
So they see it.
Oh, boy.
You know, there were certain things. And through that discussion, he ends up saying, you know, all I really care about is that I can go visit my wife at the assisted living facility.
Oh, my gosh.
You know,
wow.
like,
yes.
That's the piece of, like,
that's the motivation.
If we can get to this, like,
the why.
The why do you need to go somewhere? And sometimes people can let down some of their defensiveness about the actual driving piece.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's really.
So
that's
what
cool.
what are some of the 3 flags that you see?
Yes. So I do think it's a great idea for family members to be having these discussions, thinking about these things. And so I have a couple of tips related to that. The first one is this person having difficulty with daily tasks? So, for example, are they forgetting to take their medications? That's a common one.
Okay, so
sometimes you don't know about that right away.
Okay. So daily tasks at home, things that they would normally be doing that they're maybe not doing, and you can see some of the signs.
What about like personal appearance? Is that like if their personal appearance
hygiene?
Like hygiene?
I think that definitely could be one.
Okay.
Honestly, to me, that's usually further along.
Okay.
Let's say in dementia, for example.
Okay.
The people that I'm seeing for a driving eval are still pretty high functioning in terms of they can get ready and leave the house for the day and look like they're supposed to look, but don't open that door.
Okay.
Who knows what the kitchen looks like?
Right.
Or are their bills getting paid? Or are the medications getting reordered? So, you know, sometimes families are very aware of these things and sometimes they're not. But I just want to point out that that is all related to the same process as we need for driving.
Okay.
So, you know, how somebody's doing at home is going to relate.
The daily tasks, even of, is the house as clean as it used to be? These are some of the things that we noticed in our parents' household. So it can be small, just pay attention and notice, I guess, to our audience. Notice these things in your parents' household or your loved one's household. Are things the way they've sort of always been? And if not, and they're degrading a little bit, just keep an eye on it.
And do you think some medical professionals call this executive functioning? Right? Have you heard that term?
Yes, certainly.
Would that fit into this? Because sometimes you go to the doctor like, what is executive functioning?
Yeah.
I've had families ask because they get that from the primary care of unable to perform executive functions, and people are like, well, what does that mean?
It is a strange term, and I think yes, it's a great example of things that we do to kind of organize our life.
Okay.
So kind of these bigger things. And in terms of driving specifically, it would be planning our tasks for the day.
Gotcha.
For driving, but maybe planning for our tasks at home.
All right. That's a great first one.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the second one?
So the second one is maybe a little more noticeable.
Okay.
It would be mysterious. I like that.
Yeah.
Scrapes or dents. So things that are on the car that are unexplained.
Interesting.
And this can be just a conversation starter.
Okay.
Mom, did you know that there's a scratch on the right bumper? Actually, there's a new scratch on the right bumper. You know, having some of that just awareness of the vehicle. And I think the response to that is important too, because there may be an explanation.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, yeah, the other day this happened in the parking lot. Or maybe, I don't know what you're talking about.
What if they get defensive in that? Like, oh, I didn't put that dent there. It wasn't me. Like, you're wrong. Like, you did that. I mean, what do we...
And I wouldn't start a fight over it.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
if
Okay, that's a good tip. Okay.
Just tucking that away.
Okay.
Maybe checking the car again in a week.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's.
So
yeah.
the idea is keep an eye on it, just like with the daily tasks.
Right.
Keep an eye on it. Doesn't mean you have to jump in, doesn't mean you have to have a big conversation right then, but just start having smaller conversations to build that trust and to help create the ability to have the conversation in a safe space for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a huge point is that safe space.
Yeah, and I found that sometimes those dents were explainable. Sometimes they weren't. And sometimes even when they were explainable, they were things that mom or dad wouldn't have done in the past. So that tells you that the driving, maybe they weren't able to pull out as well as they used to pull out of a driving spot or something.
Yes, it could be a complaint. The mailbox didn't always.
Yes.
It wasn't there.
The mailbox moved.
The mailbox is the reason.
Yes, my dad used to complain about the narrowing of the garage sides.
Oh boy.
Why? I don't know why the rear view mirror was hit there. I have no idea. All right. So daily tasks, mysterious scrapes and dents on the car. What's the third one?
The third one I have is really getting lost or confused while driving. So again, this may be hard for the adult child to know.
Okay.
Yes.
But sometimes it's really obvious. Sometimes you're getting the call. I am somewhere and I don't know how to get home from here.
Okay.
Sometimes what I hear is the adult child is saying, I got a call from the woman my mom always drives to church. And she called and said,
interesting.
Your mom stopped in the middle of the intersection last week and it made me nervous. So sometimes it's through
interesting.
friends
Okay.
that you're getting some of that information.
That is very interesting.
And would this third one to me, would you kind of rate that kind of pretty high up from a safety like where would of the 3 tips, like if you notice this one, is this like more of a red flag, I guess, than the first 2? I mean, how do you weight these any differently?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. That one is a big one in terms of getting lost. There's also how do they respond to that? So people will say all the time, well, if I don't use my GPS, I do get turned around. Then I stop, I turn on my GPS, and I find my way home, which is different than, well, I meant to go to the post office and I ended up in Salida. You know, like,
yeah, that's a big difference.
So
Oops. Yeah. Okay.
There's more to it, I guess.
So,
and I think I'm sorry, just in terms of thinking of these as red flags, to me that doesn't mean stop driving, take away the key, something like that. This means we need to investigate further.
Okay.
And start the conversation. Yeah. So for my mom, we figured out that she was most likely getting lost because she would take 2 hours to do something that used to take her 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But she would never let on. She wouldn't let on to my dad. She wouldn't let on to any of us. So I wouldn't say there was defensiveness, but there was a lot of hiding. So how would you handle that?
I think trying to get the full story, kind of however that is.
Just kind of probe
we
still.
Had a friend who similar story, would take the dog for a walk. He'd drive to the park and take it, but he'd be gone for 3 hours.
Oh.
Whereas before it was like a half an hour.
Okay.
Type thing. And there are some, it's pretty easy to put a tracking device on the car. I mean, there are, if you really want to go down and get that information, there are ways to do that too.
That's true.
Do you think though it's just in general breaking the stigma about that, you're not, because I think I know the big fear for the males that we've had interactions with in our family, my grandfather's, it's the independence. Yeah. It's losing your independence. And with, Ubers or, they have all these different lifts, whatever other ways to means, we maybe need to be more creative as to how we're moving between places. Because for so long, the car was the thing. You buy a car, buy a house, right? That was like really important to my
that generation.
Yeah, my grandfather worked at General Motors for 50 plus years, right? He had a company car when he got to a certain level, and that was his car, right? It was his car. I don't know if it's a stigma that's tied around to driving, right?
Huge truth to what you're saying. And in terms of that generation in particular, driving has a different meaning than to us. It's so tied to identity. either.
Oh, that's a good.
It
Ooh.
is.
Okay.
Well said.
Yeah.
We're happy to hop in an Uber, whatever.
Less
I tried to get my dad an Uber. That was a no-go. That was not.
Oh, we never even. That didn't exist for
No.
my grandfather's.
Yeah.
We were not going to try that with my. No.
Definitely not. So I think there's work to be done there. It sounds like we're all saying there's work to be done on challenging the stigma around what does it mean to not drive.
Right.
For this generation that we're talking about, the older generation, probably even a little bit on the older side of baby boomers.
I'd say probably somewhere between 75 and
Yeah,
75 plus.
75 and up.
Yeah. Yeah. When here's a funny story. When we did eventually take my dad's keys away, he snuck out. He had an extra key.
That's amazing.
And he would
though.
sneak out.
That is so
It
cool.
does.
Though.
So
That
then,
is so cool.
So then we get into that, and you started this with this is a very complex topic. It is a very complex topic. There's a lot of factors that go into it. What kind of family dynamics are there? What kind of relationship do you have with this person? Suddenly we found ourselves in that position of dad's acting like a teenager and we're his kids. What do we do about this? And those are some tough things. So I will tell you what I did, and that's how we met you, is although I clearly met you several years before with my mom, but we took dad to CNA Adaptive Driving here in Denver and had him go through a driving test. The whole time he complained and said, this is fixed. They're trying to take my keys away. He was very resistant, but thankfully for them, they were able to provide documentation of his driving so that then the neurologist could look at it and say, you cannot drive anymore. I'm very sorry. I have to report you to the DMV. And that's what got us to that point.
Wow,
you probably see this happen a lot.
I do.
Are there ways to handle that just a little bit better?
That's a big question.
I know.
That's a loaded question.
Kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So I do agree that that objective piece can be really helpful.
Okay.
So when I was talking earlier about that gentleman that I saw, having some data behind it for him was helpful. For somebody with moderate dementia, where the problem is insight, it's not going to help. I mean, the driving about being very helpful to the family, to the doctors. I just can't expect that the client is always going to end up happy.
That's fair.
Well,
and that's just the way it goes.
Good point. And I think this is a good time to show some of the content here that Terri brought.
Yes.
And we'll put PDFs or links to these in the show notes. This one's called Colorado's Guide for Aging Drivers and Their Families. And I imagine this is not just Colorado Springs, this is all of Colorado.
Okay.
So there's a couple pages that I marked here that I think are very interesting to families. I think you'll enjoy this. The 5 top crash types for older drivers. So some of the things that happen in terms of when they're turning and things like that. This is something, if you're concerned about your older, your parent or your spouse or someone driving, get this book and look through some of these things and just pay attention.
Yep.
The other one is the impact of aging on driving. These are things, we're all getting older and we need to know these things about ourselves, but we also need to know that this is physiological as much as anything. It's not that we want to remove independence. We actually want to aid independence and find other ways for them to get to their spouse at assisted living or to the grocery store. Yeah.
So Kathy, with you being our chief inspiration, Maverick, what inspires you about this?
I am so inspired, one, that you took this on, that you were a Maverick, because you were, by saying there's a need for this and I'm going to make this happen. And 2, by the way that you're teaching families to how to do this and giving families the ability to have these conversations so that we're not in as high anxiety state as we generally are about these. But you give us it's hard. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's a transition. So I'm so inspired by that. And I appreciate that you're doing this. And there are lots of resources for anyone out there who might be dealing with this. So if you have questions, post us in the
comment
comments.
section. Gotcha. I got you.
Word, yeah.
So we're getting big into action. And so this has been a really good discussion. And as Catherine and I said a lot, we do a lot of talking. So what are some action that can be taken to get this started?
Well, I think in terms of families, my kind of request or the action is to, even though it's a sensitive topic, even though it's a difficult topic, to have the conversation.
Okay.
Bring it up. I said don't pick a fight, but
Yeah.
bring it up, and it's not a one and done conversation. Just know that this is going to be something that needs to be discussed over time. Get support, get help from the medical profession, get some other opinions in there. But the sooner we start these discussions, it just gives people more time to get used to the idea.
So more processing time?
Yes.
Okay.
That's really good. And you said something in there I really want to call out. Mobilize the team around you. Use the doctor. Tell the doctor that Dad's driving into the other lanes and he doesn't think he is. That you share this information because those professionals can really help you.
And I would say too is make sure you bring in your care circle. Really bring that in. For anybody that doesn't know what a care circle is, it can be your neighbors, your family, your primary care physician, your therapist, your dad's therapist, whoever it is. Bring your care circle together because you need support with this.
Yeah.
And bring them in. And really don't be afraid. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And that's another tough topic to talk, but it's okay.
Yeah, and I like what you said about start the conversation. Just start it, and you'll build on it. It doesn't have to be a big sit down right now. Just start weaving it into conversation. So, Terri, we've talked a lot about creating hope here, and that's really what we're all about, creating hope for the way we age. What do you think that you're doing and what you're doing to create hope for the way we age?
She asks the tough questions.
Yeah. I think in terms of hope, I think of what we want our seniors' lives to be like.
Okay.
And I think of, it's easy to get bogged down on, but a lot of things we talked about, the identity behind driving, the independence behind driving. But really, what matters is where that access. So staying involved in the community. So maybe it doesn't matter how you get there, it's that you still get to go to church. Or that you still get to connect with your neighbors for breakfast.
Okay.
So a lot of times I find myself trying to shift the conversation, especially when there needs to be a shift away from driving, to what's the ultimate goal here? The ultimate goal is for you to be around people you love and to have those connections. How can we as a support team make that happen for you?
I love that. That's so basic.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing because, well, I think to sum it up real quick, you want to make sure they still have a purpose-driven life. You want them to be as active as they want to be, just maybe in a different mode of transportation, right? I mean, that's
and I'm going to say there's a little bit of being a counselor in what you do because there's family dynamics and dealing with people's emotions, and that takes something special. So we're really happy that you're doing this.
And thank you for coming up.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Terri, how can people find you if they have more questions, our audience here?
So my website is healthpromotionpartners.com, or give me a call. Happy to talk to family members, anybody who has questions about driving. The number is 719-231-6657.
And we will have the website, all that other content, these great documents for aging in Colorado and driving. We'll have those under our comments section here, so keep on the lookout for those links and your phone number as well too.
And let me just ask, because we did mention she's in Colorado Springs. If our audience is not in Colorado Springs, maybe they're in another state somewhere, what would be your advice? Can they still call you and you can refer them?
There's a website.
Okay.
ADEDS, we'll put it in the show notes.
We'll put in the show notes.
It's a National Organization of Driver Rehab Specialists, and it has a state-by-state directory.
Okay, very
Excellent.
Cool. All right.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much, Terri. And before we sign off, we want to talk just briefly about an event that Francis and I are putting on in March.
Correct. We are hosting the Maverick Transformation Summit, March 19th and 20th in Denver, Colorado. And it's going to be an action-based summit. So our whole goal here, as we talked with Terri, was taking action. And so our participants, our Mavericks, are going to walk away with 3 action items. And how are we doing that?
Well, we're setting up challenge circles, which are round tables of people from all different areas in senior care. So it's not just executive directors sitting at the table talking about it. It's executive directors, family members, doctors, physical therapists, pharmacy, hospice, family members, older adults themselves sitting at the same table talking about 3 topics. One is affordability, one is our workforce issues, and one is communication. So you'll select one, you'll sit in that round table, and it's really not until we hear each other's pains and challenges and processes that we can get above that and start looking at bigger solutions. So please join us, check out our website, all of this in the show notes. Early bird pricing through February 14th.
Yep.
So take advantage of it.
And again, we hope to see everybody there. We truly want everybody to be a maverick in their own life and help challenge the way we age. Until next time.